All right, welcome to the cinematic hodgepodge. I am not part of Find Your Film, but I'm going to introduce it here. I am Andrew Martin from Andrew Watches Movies and the internet trolling people about Marvel. We have Bruce Purkey with us, William Lindus from Movie Bears podcast, and Eric Holmes. Bruce and Eric, both from Find Your Film and usually of the Cinema Hodgepodge. Today, we are going to do a spoiler discussion on Nope, which the only thing I think I can say online about it is Nope is dope, because I really don't want to spoil this movie for people whatsoever. So,
well, that's what we're going to do here.
Yes. But this is why everybody that's listening to this, if you have not seen the movie, stop what you're doing right now and go see it. And shoot, why do I have my... See, you're going to hear some voices, I guess, or some beeps, because I'm not set up completely right.
I always hear voices. That's just normal.
I feel like that's appropriate for this particular group and the types of movies that this particular group likes, right?
Yeah. Yes. If you hear a little beep or something, I'm sorry.
I usually hear voices too, but they're usually telling me to do really mundane things. It's time to go to the bathroom. Don't forget to wipe this time. Movie's starting in an hour.
Do your dishes, Eric.
all those mundane things. But the one time it tells me to kill someone, I'd be like, well, it was right all the other times.
Or you're going to be just like, nah, sounds like too much effort, right? Like,
no.
So, you hit on something pretty good, Andrew. Like, we're going to spoil this thing right out the gate, right? Like, there are going to be other episodes. In fact, we're doing one on our show where we're going to do a little bit more of a non-spoiler review later this week. But this is a movie where it's really, really easy to lose some of the impact of it by being spoiled on it. Like, this is one where you should go in, maybe you've seen a trailer, that's it, go in as cold as possible and just enjoy it. So yeah, if you are one of those people who wandered across this and is using this to sort of decide whether or not you want to watch Nope or not, I think our recommendation across the board is yes, go see it, but then come back and listen to the show.
Yeah. I would say too, if you haven't seen it yet, Nope is its main goal is to be an entertaining movie. It does have some good points to it and everything, but mainly it's entertainment. Like, he wants to be Spielberg for this movie. He doesn't want to be like with Get Out is definitely a message movie. Get Out has a lot that it's saying about things, a lot about society. Nope has little bits, but it's almost like he took a challenge from people that were criticizing him. Kind of like, can you make just a movie for entertainment's sake? And I think he did. I think that he made a really good one for entertainment's sake.
I think there's messages in here. It's
that's
just,
what I'm saying too.
You have to really dig, like the alien chewing them out and spitting, eating what it wants and spitting out the rest. And then the whole subplot. Now this is a part that confused me while I was watching it, was all the flashback stuff with the Gordy the monkey.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna get into that right away.
Yeah, right away, bam. Yeah, assuming you've already seen it. If you haven't, you have no idea what we're talking about. If I remember correctly, they open with that. It's just the shot of the monkey all bloody, just kind of poking at one of the bodies. And then they kind of slowly bring that, expand on that story throughout the movie in flashbacks. And that part kind of confused me, because I was like, okay, the monkey went nuts and killed everyone. I thought there was like a bigger twist there. And I was like, oh no, the monkey just flipped out and killed everyone. So that kind of threw me off a little bit.
I think that part with Gordy that's going through the movie, I've seen some people online talk, also saying that they're confused by it, but I really think that is the crux of the movie. Yeah. And I don't think the movie works without the Gordy stuff, because you got young Stephen Yeun, who they show hiding underneath the table during this part, because he used to be an actor. He's on the short-lived kids show that had a horrible, horrible accident on it. And it's the reason that Hollywood didn't work with chimpanzees anymore on set, because, well, you got the Clint Eastwood movies where he's driving around in a convoy with a chimp next to him and stuff. It's all fun and games. That stuff went away at a certain point. And there's a lot of people talking about not using animals at all in movies. And I actually think that this is one of the things that it's going for, because it's the unpredictability of things. And you also have the horse later on that almost kicks somebody on set because they also think that they've got it handled. They can do all these things, have these lights around, utilize these things for their own benefits, kind of exploiting the animals. And they find out that they're in over their heads with that and they can't do it. And that goes into the alien. Like it's a whole metaphor for like everything in it. So
yeah.
You're absolutely right. Like there's to explain the Gordy stuff, you have to sort of think about some of the subtext stuff. And I think it's important to note that like was mentioned sort of at the outset of this episode, you can watch this movie and enjoy it strictly from the entertainment perspective. You know, that is one way to do it. But the Gordy stuff really dips into the subtext. And there's really two like messages or themes or whatever that I really got from this. And one has to do with exploitation, and the other one has to do with spectacle. We end up with this quote right at the very beginning of the movie. It's a biblical quote about spectacle. I don't have it pulled up, but
Noam 3:6.
Noam 3:6, yeah, and it's about spectacle, and so all of those two things both kind of merge into the story of Gordy, because you know two things happen when he's underneath that table. One, this horrific scene is playing out in front of him, and everyone that was exploiting Gordy on set, you know, trying to control something that was essentially a wild creature, and it backfired on them. He's seeing all of that play out, but he's not getting the right messages from that. He's seeing the spectacle ahead of him. He's seeing like, hey, I was able to control this thing by doing the fist bump. You know, he was able to later see the way the spectacle plays out through the Saturday Night Live sketch that they talk about and the trophy room and all of that. So all of that really shows the fatal flaw of the Stephen Yeun character. When he gets everyone together there to have them look up at the sky, he thinks that he can control and exploit this creature for his own means, the same way that, you know, he should have learned from the incident that happened when he was a kid. And also the spectacle of it, you know, as we're seeing all of this, you know, up in the sky, everyone is being distracted and pulled into this giant thing, and it eats them alive. And one of the things that we see by the end of this movie, the characters that are most successful are the ones who are able to pull themselves away from the spectacle and focus on what's around them. We even see it right there at the end of the movie, where the little shot prints out of the well, and the Kiki Lane character, instead of you know, going and grabbing the picture and doing all of that, she's not looking up, she's not looking there, she's looking out at something that's more important to her relationship to her brother. So those things makes you can enjoy this movie from there's cool reveals. No, watch. You can you can enjoy this movie from all of those, just like the cool like shit that happens in this movie. There's a lot of cool shit in it, but the themes really cement themselves in the Gordy scene. And I think by the end of the movie, I don't know that I would have had the same, I don't know, feeling as to what I was supposed to get away from it as I would if I hadn't sat through the Gordy stuff. Also, the Gordy stuff is fucking terrifying, and probably the most terrifying scene of the year. So there's also that.
See, another thing that kind of threw me off was the you can't look at the alien, because I saw it as like on a deeper level. I saw it as here's something going on, and I'm just gonna look the other way. Because if I look at it, it's gonna come like a kind of like a Me Too thing. Like, how come no one speaks up? You know, here's this horrible thing going on right in front of you, and you just choose to look the other way because you don't want it to blow back on you somehow. I thought that's where it was going, but then the way you're describing it was something else entirely.
Yeah, I thought it was a power dynamic thing, and sort of like with an animal as well. Like, okay. Yellowstone Park, we have people right now, we got all these stories of people being like gored by bison up there. And it's because they get too close to the thing. They look the thing in the eye and they think that they know exactly how you're supposed to treat the animal. You can get close, it's safe, and all of these things. And then it's not. It's like the same thing when the horse sees that orb and it sees its own eye looking back at him and it freaks out. Or Gordy popping at the balloons. That's like what set it off there. This is an animal. You can't look it in the eye, or else it's going to be like, oh, we're fighting now. Like we're at odds, kind of like an instinctual sort of thing is how I took that with it, instead of like the looking away and stuff, but focusing on what's important. That I didn't actually think about, and that's good. And when William was talking, I also thought like taking Gordy out of this movie would be like taking the mayor out of Jaws. Yes. You can't do it, because that is like the whole thing, like the mayor. He's messing with people's lives, the spectacle, 4th of July. Stephen Yeun and him have a lot in common in the two movies, what their dynamic is and how they play with people's lives too.
One other thing I would add to this whole conversation, because I think you're right on track with all of the ideas, is there's also an aspect of the spectacle kind of being, it's almost like a hubris, like you're like looking into the face of God as if you're able to do that, but you'll get killed. I mean, the very opening shot, there's a spectacle of things falling from the sky, and literally something goes through his father's eye and kills him, you know?
Yeah.
And you've
That's
got,
true.
The other thing about it is, I think that you've got Jupe, when he's a little kid, he gets the fist bump, and I think he almost thinks he's charmed, you know, like he's special. He's special, you know, he's got this special ability that, once again, that's hubris. That's like this, like thinking that you're above it all, that you're special, that you're not just another animal that could be fed upon, which is what happens to people in this movie, literally. And they have to kind of discover that, yeah, you are just an animal that can be fed upon. And
we as humans think we're above it.
Yeah,
we think that we're not. We're special,
right?
Like we're like on this planet.
Oh,
we can go mess with lions. We can have tigers in our houses, and they're going to be fine with it.
One other thing I want to bring up about the Gordy scene, well, a couple things that I liked. I liked also how it does some other things just thematically that work within the world. It's got the first fist bump, and there's a lot of things about firsts, right? The first animated thing. Now we're going to get the first shot of the actual shot of an alien. So there's a lot of that going on here. It's also got nice parallelism with the balloons, because of course balloons end up having, you know, deadly and damaging effect at the end of the movie. And the one thing that's mysterious about it that I don't quite have a handle on is the magically balancing shoe. I don't quite know exactly how that fits, other than if maybe it's just another example of him thinking he's charmed, and that shoe is like a symbol of his kind of charmed, like an impossible nature. I don't know.
Well, sure.
I think it was a visit.
Go ahead.
Honestly, I think it was a visit. And the same thing, like when Keith David, like when he that plane drops all the stuff, it drops everything because that's when the animal comes there. At least that's what I think. That's when it takes over in the cloud. I think it's another visit where this animal, which we haven't mentioned that either, that this alien, it's different. It's not an alien. It's not like a little green Martian kind of person. And I actually think that some of the criticism that Jordan Peele has taken, where they're like, people are like, oh, your movies are all like putting races against each other and stuff. I think he's like, fine, then we're not going to fight like little green, purple men or anything like that. We're going to have an animal kind of thing that's a different being that's up there. And I think that was really smart of him to do. But yeah, like that whole predator animal thing, I think it's a big thing in there. And I think it's good decisions by him too.
Yeah. And the reason that shoe propped up, ultimately, like for me, it doesn't matter, in that like it's a thing that happened in part of this like horrific scene. I think we hear about stories of that all the time, you know. Unfortunately, there's a lot of like school violence and gun violence happening like in the news every single day, and you hear these stories about just the individual sort of like weird and almost surreal things that people kind of see and think during those types of things. And again, they're not individual like actual like magical surreal things. It's like when you look around a room and you find just the one thing to fixate on, and it's the one thing that jumps out. And I think that's what the shoe was to him. You know, it was this distillation of this horrendous thing, and it was something he could compartmentalize into his life. You know, it was the shoe that stood up with this tiny little drop of blood. It wasn't smeared in blood. It's kind of showing that like this trauma that happened to him is a part of what he experiences, but more than anything else, like what he takes away from it is just sort of like the, you know, I was there and this is what I saw. I shared a picture with you guys as well. I noticed this when I was sort of like rewatching some of like the trailers and stuff before this. There's a shot of like the Gordy set when it's all abandoned, and there's these like 3 Panavision cameras over on the side. And I know that this is just sort of subtextual, but they actually look like the 3 little like alien face masks that the kids wear at a certain part in the movie. And there's a certain part of me that has to feel like this this was not coincidence. Like this is, you know, like not only is this movie about like we're looking into creatures' eyes, we're not supposed to look into creatures' eyes, but I think also there's a a subtextual part of it for me, where I started seeing eyes where there weren't eyes and sort of looking away and looking towards them. And that's powerful. That's weird that a movie can make you do that, like kind of alter a frame in that way.
That's cool. I like it that they probably took that for the set design, or the design of those masks too. It really looks evident.
Yeah.
And he does do things like he likes to put little Easter eggs all through his movies. Like you remember in Us with the Chud VHS and all the other stuff there.
Yeah.
Well, in this movie, there's somebody that's wearing something from this in the movie. And I really, really liked that because I own the entire series and I love this show. When we're in the beginning, you know, all the producers and stuff they're working with, one of the guys is just wearing a Northern Exposure hat. And I'm like, that's not on accident. Like he's telling people, I like this. This is good stuff that influenced me and stuff. It's a very great show set in Alaska, weirdness, like nice characters. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out too.
So
I like how Jordan, he makes richness in his movies through that.
Yes.
I may have missed something, and I'm not that well versed in IMAX cameras, but I didn't realize they had hand crank IMAX cameras. Was that whole camera setup was that something that what was it, Dave Wincott, his character, was that just something?
Antlers Holst.
Was that?
I think he made that camera. I think like that's not like a normal camera. That thing has been that thing's been modified. Like people modify guns. He modified that camera.
There you go.
You mean Quint? You're talking about Quint, right?
The Quint,
basically Quint. Yes.
Well, top dollar from Crow, because I noticed one of the top hat was one of the code names.
I did not notice that.
Of course, I was from a Monopoly game, but I was like, I saw top hat. I'm like, oh, is that top dollar? But no, it wasn't. It was a different character. But anyway.
You know, you mentioned the cinematography, and I think that cinematography is a big part of this, not just because this was filmed in IMAX, presented on IMAX, and looks fucking amazing, by the way. But
I need to see it IMAX still.
I haven't seen it
IMAX. I saw it Prime.
Yeah. I need to see it in full IMAX. But yeah, so the cinematographer here was Hoyt van Hoytema. He did like Tenet. He does a lot of like Nolan stuff. And so it's really interesting to me that we've got Jordan Peele, who I would think of all the different like things that you can praise about Get Out and Us. I don't think that I think they were well shot films, but I don't think that you would necessarily say like, you got to go to those for the cinematography. You go to them for the stories and the way everything's woven together. And I think that this was really an example of Jordan Peele as a filmmaker, knowing that what he's trying to create is sort of like a take on the summer blockbuster, kind of like sort of like sitting at the crux where Close Encounters of the Third Kind turns into like Jaws, like sort of that throwback to summer blockbuster. He gets a fantastic cinematographer who is specifically known for this type of shot, because he knows he has to sell all the stuff that's up there. He has to sell the spectacle of the movie, of not staring directly into the spectacle. And I thought that was also genius. And I believe there was some stuff I was just sort of like poking around, and I think there were some like special shots that he and Hoyt worked on that hadn't been done yet before. And so they were really pushing the scope of like really what IMAX cameras can do. And so seeing them then weave back around into having a character inside of the movie who is doing the exact same thing added like a really fun little meta context to the whole thing.
I don't know if stunt casting is the right term for this, but do you suppose there's any of that in this, specifically with Keith David having been in They Live, like just to kind of throw parallels to some of that in this?
I mean, you can throw parallels to The Thing in this as well.
Yeah.
That and if you look online, Jordan Peele is trying to credit John Carpenter as being the greatest film horror director of all time. Like it's all over there. Whenever anyone tries to praise him, he's like, praise John Carpenter.
He's like, I will not stand for this. I will not stand for this John Carpenter slander or something like that.
Well, no, I think it's on purpose. He cast Keith David in the beginning of this movie as the father too, because Keith David and John Carpenter for me are very intertwined together, just as much as Kurt Russell is with
one
John
of them
Carpenter.
Russells.
A Russell.
Yes.
I mean, you don't cast Keith David on accident. You don't just like wake up one day and say like, yeah, let me see who's on the Rolodex. I guess I'll get this guy as the father. Jordan Peele is incredibly and you don't kill him. Like Jordan Peele's an incredibly film literate guy, like, in the way that's not like wink, wink, nudge, nudgy. Like, this is a guy that knows his shit and uses his references to make something whole cloth new, but that still honors the things that like inform him. And of course, when you have someone like Keith David and you have him also talking, you're right. Like, I've been seeing those threads on Twitter. Some guy, not some guy, a web artist named Adam Ellis did this thing. It's like, hey, I think Jordan Peele might have made like the best like 3 horror movies in a row. Can anyone name someone who's done better? And even Jordan Peele popped in that thread, like you mentioned. It was just like, have you seen John Carpenter, my dude? Like, this guy blows me out of the water. You're absolutely right. Like, Keith David was, maybe it's stunt casting, but maybe it's also something along the lines of like, I don't know. I feel like sometimes stunt casting carries a specific type of baggage for me.
Yeah,
like
that's why I wasn't sure if it was the right word, but I just meant like in the sense that hey, we're gonna use Keith David in this to get you thinking about the thing or get you thinking about They Live, or maybe it was just he likes Keith David because he didn't like Keith David.
It's intentional.
It's homage casting. It's homage casting.
There you go. There you go.
That's what we should call it from now on. Instead of stunt casting when they do this, it's homage casting when they're trying to stick an idea in your head from something else by putting this person into it. Kind of like Kill Bill. Even Quentin Tarantino puts the girl Go-Go. She's also in Battle Royale. Yeah. I think that he did that on purpose to kind of make people watch that movie with things. Kind of, I don't know. Jordan seems like he's like, people try to say he's M. Night Shyamalan. I think that that's kind of like, it's not right for him. He's more like Tarantino weaving things together. He's more like Hitchcock with the way that he can stage things now. Like showing, like Will's saying with the shots in this, I was amazed by how this movie was put together. I was just like, everything was so good. And it's like he took care even like with the music, like Sunglasses at Night. That's not in the movie on accident. Yeah. That's about like looking at the thing too. That's about like, you can't look it in the eye. You put your sunglasses on, you're fine. And like we haven't even talked about the grief that Daniel Kaluuya's character is going through in this movie. We haven't even talked about Daniel Kaluuya. This movie has so much going on in it. Like, my God. But like the whole movie, he seems like a broken man. And I buy it from him all the way through the movie. Like in the beginning, he's kind of, I kind of need to see it again because I think he smiles. Like when he's with his father, even like when they're working with the horses in those parts, and then his dad dies. And we go 6 months later in the movie and he's broken. He can't look anybody in the eye whatsoever. Like him and the horse are the only two that kind of relate. Like when he's on set, he can't even talk to anybody to like tell them a point. And some people would be like, that's weak. I thought it was so brilliant and a great portrait of how grief would be. 6 months after losing your dad, somebody that is like the head of the business that you're working on, somebody that like the what is it, Hayworth Hollywood Horses or something like that, or Haywood Hollywood Horses. Yeah. Like we're talking about Keith David. He's the shadow over this whole movie. I mean, we even see like the little tiny bits they put in. It's like the video of him doing the intro, talking about the black man on the horse and his great grandfather or his grandfather. And then Kiki's talking about it later, and she has to put the extra great in there because we're a different generation removed from everything. There's so much in this movie, so many things.
Yeah, and I don't think you can underestimate Daniel Kaluuya. I can never say his name. Kaluuya.
Oh,
thank you. Help me.
Who is it? Tiffany Haddish. When she was announcing him for the Oscars, she had the best mispronunciation of his name because she couldn't say it. And she called him Daniel Kaluuya.
Hallelujah. There you go.
Hallelujah.
Yes, that's what she called him. It was fantastic.
I don't think you underestimate the subtlety of his performance in this movie because he has to convey so much, and he doesn't do it in this really wild way. And by giving him his sister, who's so brash and kind of out there and such an energetic figure, it really lets him shine in that other space, I think, where if he had to carry it kind of alone, he might be more apt to go bigger in certain parts than he does in this movie. And I think that, like you said, that there's kind of a sequence, right? Opening shot, the stuff falls out of the sky, dad gets injured. Then there's the quick shot of him in the car, and he's in the truck with his dad, trying to keep his dad lucid while he knows his dad is dying. And then straight from there, right after that, you're going to get the scene of the horse in the commercial or whatever they're doing, the scene that they're going to be doing, and the way he acts in there. Like, you're right, he and the horse are on the same plane, right? They're both sitting there. They're both being treated, and then there's where you kind of get some of the subtext, right? Too, like how they're treated, how they're both treated in that space, how he is kind of downward trod, and his face is down, his eyes are down, he's not meeting anyone's gaze, and then of course that becomes a huge subtext to the alien itself, right?
You get the exploitation.
Meet its gaze, get killed. So much subtlety.
Yeah, you get that exploitation of, the people that work within Hollywood. And you can definitely see like it chews you up and spits you out, which we see from the stuff falling from the sky. But and I want to double back to that. But before I do, you mentioned something about the relationship between Keith David and his kids, Daniel Kaluuya and Kiki Lane, that I think is important for me, is that you have this like almost like perfect businessman in the Keith David character, right? He sort of has it all. He knows his job, and he also knows how to sell his job. And each of his kids got a different one of those traits. Daniel Kaluuya's got responsibility, but no charisma. The character, not the actor. Just to make that clear, Daniel Kaluuya has a ton of charisma. And then the Kiki Lane character, she has all of the charisma, but none of the responsibility. And we get to see the way those two things clash through their relationships through the end of the film, where at the very end, we've got the Kiki Lane character. She's the one that is responsible for both getting the killer shots and killing the monster. So she has come full circle. She has done something. She could have just run away and gone off to do her own stuff, but she stuck it out and fought. Meanwhile, that last shot of Daniel Kaluuya on the horse, he feels more comfortable and in his element than he's felt at any point in this movie. I don't know that it's full on charisma that he's got there, but he has poise. He has something. He's regained something that he's lost. So I love that both of the characters got the missing element to their father that they were missing by that final climax. I love a good character arc.
I do too. What happened?
Real quick, I thought it was Kiki Palmer. Or is Kiki Lane? Is that something different?
I'm not sure her last name.
Oh my God,
Palmer.
It is
Okay.
Kiki Palmer.
Okay.
You're right. It's Kiki
I
Palmer.
kept hearing you say Kiki Lane. I'm like, I think I'm wrong.
Yeah, my bad. Kiki Palmer.
What happened to the Fries guy, by the way? Just realizing that when we're talking about the character arcs and stuff, what happened to him?
I think the last time we saw him, so he got wrapped up in that tarp, right?
Yeah.
And then he sucks up with the fence. And then I think the fence gets spit back out, and he rolls down the hill, spit out too. And I think that's the last thing we see. So I think the assumption is that he's probably alive, but very battered. In fact, I think we see him rolling down with some camera pieces.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
He had like the barbed wire wrapped around him in the tarp, so he kind of got saved by.
I thought that was going to rip him in half, by the way, just so you know, when he was putting the barbed wire around him. I'm like, dude, you're going to get bisected. You're going to be two. You're going to.
Yeah. When the tarp came down, I thought that was the bottom half of him came down, and then like his whole body came out, and I was like, okay, but what did happen to him?
He's an underrated character, though.
He was
good.
Great. He was
good.
kind of Riz Ahmed-ish, like Riz Ahmed light, I guess I would say. But we got to call out a few things. I mean, see what you guys think. I thought these were great things. First of all, just the slow unveiling of what the creature is, like how that is. It goes from don't see alien at all, then we see a spaceship, then we see the spaceship kind of being weird, like kind of fluttering and having like fabric, and you're not quite sure, and then it's a hole in the bottom, and it's sucking through the hole, and then eventually you see the full-on alien. I thought all of that was spectacular. And we got to mention the one scene where we're inside. Well, there's a few scenes where we're kind of inside it, but there's one scene where we're inside it and we're seeing the people get sucked up into its digestive tract or whatever that is. That scene was freaking great. And you were just like, you didn't see much, you didn't see a lot, but it was horrifying.
I have a friend who he messaged me after watching this movie. He knew that I saw it, and he said, hey, so I have night terrors, and one of my night terrors is sort of like reminiscent of exactly what happened as the people are being sort of like, when you do that quick cut, you see the people like swirling up, and then you start seeing people like in this thing. And at this point, you don't know that it's a creature. At this point, you still think that it's a ship. Like they'll reveal like 5 minutes later that he thinks it's a monster. But you see people in this like fluttering thing, and they're kind of being squished a bit, and you start to see blood, and you hear screams. And then as it's flying around, you're still hearing the screams. That's the second most terrifying scene in all of horror this year. The first being the Gordy scene. This movie is, yes, it is a big blockbuster, and it's not necessarily as traditional horror, maybe as his previous films.
Nothing scares me. It scared me.
It scared the shit out of me.
I was in the theater. I was like, oh my God. And I was on the edge of my seat, and it made me jump a couple times. That never happens.
I think that probably the, I don't know if it's scary, but well, first of all, I appreciate a good raining blood sequence.
Yeah, right.
I'm thinking about the same scene. Yeah.
But I thought the creepiest part was certainly the and we already talked about it, but the Gordy attack on the set, where just, and I think that's what helps this movie a lot, is because it's really slow a lot of the times, just like really quiet, just kind of, and because we're following Daniel Kaluuya most of the time, and he didn't talk much, and then so when something happens, like, you don't need a big thing to happen, like just even little tiny things like really stand out, and then when you get that scene like that monkey attack, it was like, oh shit, this is, and all like, you know, with the lights and everything, and it's pretty horrifying to watch.
It was a brutal attack too. When Gordy goes back for seconds, I was just I was like, oh my God. But the thing I thought you were talking about with the raining blood is something that made me laugh and then jump right away. It's when Daniel's in the car and like they're doing the whole thing with the fake horse, and it comes up and he's kind of looking out and he sees something. And he just goes, nope. Mm-hmm. And he's listening to Sunglasses at Night in the car. And then the horse goes slam right through the window. I was like, oh my God. And there too, you're also getting the dribbles from like digestion and stuff too. That scene was fantastic. And it creeped me out, made me jump and laugh at the same time. Can't ask for more from a horror movie than that at all.
So I have a question for you guys, actually. I saw a couple reviews where they complained about the ending with the balloon blowing him up, going up and blowing up the alien basically and killing it. And how, or monster, maybe not an alien, maybe it's lived here all of our lives.
Ancient aliens, dude. Ancient aliens.
That's right, man. But I thought, I didn't think that was intentional. I didn't think the killing of the creature was intentional. I thought that the balloon was just a lure to get it into the frame to get the photo, and that the killing with the balloon was just a happy accident. So I kind of want to get your opinion on that. And did it seem cheap to you? I thought it was great because it was kind of an homage to Jaws, of course, as well. Yes. You know, with the blowing up at the end. And also the repetition of balloons and balloon imagery and all that kind of stuff and being destructive and all that. Did you guys think it was accidental, or do you think it was intentional on her part?
If it was intentional, it'd be, I didn't pick up on how, it just seemed like more of a lure that just happened to accidentally kill it.
I think it was an accident, but like at the same time, like from her perspective, because I think if the plan was always to kill the creature by doing this, the plan would have dealt with that more. Like, you know, like even her getting on the motorcycle to ride over there only happened because a random guy showed up in the middle of their existing plan to like drop off a motorcycle. So this was her being resourceful and scrappy. Now, on the filmmaker's perspective, it wasn't an accident though, because if you really think about it, the inciting incident of the Stephen Yeun character's like arc was a bunch of balloons exploding in a set. And we get sort of a full circle moment here thematically where a balloon exploding is not what sets off the creature, the first one being Gordy, but what kills it, you know, this, you know, jean jacket in the sky.
We talked earlier about how probably not a good idea to spoil this movie before going in. And just kind of want to get your guys' thoughts on this. I think I don't think having this movie spoiled would be the end of the world. In fact, I think it'd help kind of arm you going in a little bit to kind of be prepared for things that are to come and things to look out for. Because like people compare Jordan Peele to M. Night Shyamalan, and I think that has a lot to do with the marketing, because it's, a lot of it seems to be like there's going to be this big twist. I don't think there's really a big twist.
It happens in the first act, basically, or second act, not like M. Night, where it's the end of the movie and then everything goes.
Yeah,
like, right.
I mean, it was a monster all along. Credits.
I mean, I guess. I think everyone knows going in that it's an alien. I thought it was really clever that the spaceship was the alien. So that
was awesome.
So that was pretty cool. But I think like with all the themes and the ideas in this, I think if someone were to spoil it for you, it probably wouldn't be the worst thing, because then you just have that in your mind going in, and then you can start kind of piecing things together a lot quicker, I think.
I would maybe argue. Go ahead.
I was just going to say there was so much fun to discovery with it, and that's all.
Yeah.
So,
and I agree. That's the same point I was going to make. Like, I think that what I would maybe counter with is like, I think this is the type of movie that you should go in cold the first time and then go back and watch a second time, because that point of discovery, because there's moments in this film that I think don't work if you know what the twist is. Like, there's another moment of tension building early on where we have OJ, the Daniel Kaluuya character, walking through the stable, and you don't know what's happening at this point, and then you see this like little alien head pop out, and you're just like, oh shit, is this going to be like Signs? What's about to happen? This is early in the movie too, so it's like, oh, they're really shooting their shot. And as you get through this tension, you realize it's the kids from the neighboring ranch like fucking with him. But if you knew going in that this was going to be a monster feature, not a a Little Green Men feature, you'd have to kill that scene entirely, because it just doesn't work. Also, there's a shot where he's like riding past the valley, and you see the stuff happening down at Jupe's, the Stephen Yen's character's ranch thing, as he's got the lights going, and you hear his voice through a speaker, and you can't really figure out what's going on. So it like plants this little seed in your head that like, okay, there's something happening, but I don't know what it is yet, so I've got to come back and do this. Again, if you know that it's a monster going into it, you can start putting that 2 and 2 together there, and like you don't get that fun of like sort of like working through the puzzle box.
All right.
I also think it's a movie that makes when I was watching it, some movies you kind of just shut off and you just watch the movie and you let it like go over you. This one, my brain was active, like start to finish through this movie. I was trying to like sort things out. I was trying to figure things out. I was paying attention to everything. Like, this was a very good sensory experience in the theater. And I think that if you tell people too much, it takes a little bit of that away. And it's just such a fun game that he put together for this movie. And the game is figuring out that it's a monster and not an alien spacecraft. Because also, I thought for a little bit, I'm like, are all these people being brought up there for experiments? And I'm like, wait, what's going on here? And you see like them getting chomped. And I'm like, oh no, they're being eaten right now. And I did not want to know that going in. I'm like, oh, that's so much cooler to find out that the thing's eating them and it's that vicious. So yeah, those are kinds of things I would not want to spoil going into it. It was fun finding out.
Here's maybe an unfair question, just because the internet loves a good list. How does this film rank with Get Out and Us for you?
For me personally, I actually think that he's gotten a lot better as a filmmaker, and I can see it. So I love Get Out for what it was, and it's kind of just like this cultural footprint that it has. And like, it's a classic, it's great. And my mom even loves Get Out. I took her to see that in the theater. Us, I love how it works on nightmare logic. I love how the movie like makes me feel while I'm watching it, and how it's a nice metaphor for the haves and have-nots. It's not even about black, white, anything like that. That movie is about rich versus poor. And I like how that was. This one, though, as far as a movie goes, everything is, as far as the filmmaking and everything, I think this is his best thing. And I think he's going to get better as time goes on. Personally, I've been kind of reserved in a little bit of my praise for Jordan Peele, and I've just praised the movies, not so much him as a filmmaker. Now he's done 3. So I've seen him kind of graduate now, and I'm like, all right, now I can start talking about you like a Titan. I can start talking about him in the same pantheon with like Carpenter and some of the others, because I really see it with him now. It's not just like a 1-shot, a 2-shot. He's got something really going on, and I can't, like, he's young. I can't wait to see like where he goes with everything. Like, I love the dude. I went to Upright Citizens Brigade for school as well, and that's where Jordan Peele went. Jordan Peele and Key. We talked about them a lot on the curriculum. We learn a lot of their things too. So like, he's somebody that I was excited for when Get Out came out. Now I'm like, okay, you're awesome now. I love you, dude. Anyway, that's my take on that.
Go ahead.
For me, it's too early to even rank this one. I think I like Us better than Get Out, but only like they're very close, and this one will probably be right there. And I agree with Andrew that this feels like he's leveled up quite a bit, and he was already pretty high as far as movies go. But this one looks like more of bigger budget, especially towards the end. And yeah, it's a really good kind of blockbuster type movie, but it's also a quiet movie. Like he has that Tarantino does this a lot too. Tarantino knows when to be loud, he knows when to be quiet, he knows when to build suspense, he knows when to pay it off. Like Jordan Peele's got that in spades, especially in this movie.
Right. It's like the Pixies, or the band Pixies. They knew when to be loud, they knew when to be quiet, they knew how to like take their audience and like mimic how they wanted to.
This wasn't wall to wall, like just in your face like action or set pieces or anything. And we mentioned earlier about Daniel Kaluuya just like having his quiet moments, and those quiet moments linger until they're not quiet moments anymore. And that was another thing that this thing did weird, was the editing. At least the theater I saw it in, it just kept cutting to black in really strange spots. It's that okay, that did happen. That I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't just a glitch.
It's like he leaves you wanting more in like a bunch of scenes. Like you don't want the extended version, but you almost could take an extended version, because especially those scenes you're like, okay, I know what happened.
Kind of was like, go back there. And then
I think I agree with both of you on these as far as the rating too. I would say so Carpenter is the comparison I make more than Tarantino, because I think the difference to me is Tarantino will literally redo versions of sequences and scenes and stuff in his movies, even though he puts them together in his own unique way. Whereas this is more like lovingly taking things from the past, but making something totally itself. That being said, these all kind of like Carpenter fill different roles I like them all, but in different ways, right? So if I'm in the mood for a really, small, intense little indie, horror thriller with Carpenter, I might go for Halloween. But if I want like, a really cool creature feature, I'm going to go for The Thing. And if I want something that's just crazy and over the top and outlandish, I might go for Big Trouble in Little China. So, but I love them all. Right? And this is kind of similar, right? Because what you're seeing with this one is that he can do something big and entertaining and blockbuster-y, but still keep his personality in there and still make it interesting and unique and weird and layered. And that's a step, I think. And that's where you're saying like, okay, he can do a lot of different things, and he can still do them, and he can still be himself as well. And that's hard to do. That's the kind of thing Spielberg did too, right? Where you'd see E.T., or you'd see Duel, or you'd see Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And they were all Spielberg. And so I think in that way, I think he's coming into his own, but I wouldn't say I love one more than the other. I think they would fit different moods for me as a movie watcher. And I think they're all pretty great.
There's a comparison to M. Night Shyamalan that I think is worth making too. That like, yeah, I think that people are I think there's an unfair comparison of just like both of these filmmakers like to have sort of like a twist to their story, therefore it must be the same. I think the more compelling comparison for me is so I got to be like front row for like the world premiere of Split when that came out, which was really fucking cool, not just because of the movie, but because I got to see an interview with M. Night Shyamalan during the Q&A afterwards. And I think that, because this was at a point in his career where he had gone to the top of the mountain, made Avatar, and then got shot back down to the bottom of the mountain and had to build back up. And he said, look, like when Blumhouse came to me, they said, we're not going to give you a lot of money because we think you make better films on a smaller budget. And I think that that's probably very true of M. Night Shyamalan. I think that he's the type of filmmaker who, when he has more money than he knows what to do with, he doesn't know how to kind of scale up his ideas. So what's interesting to me about Jordan Peele is I think he's the exact opposite. And that's the comparison I want to make there. This looked and felt like a larger budget film, and he uses every inch of that screen to really tell this story. His story levels up to match the the budget and the scope of everything to it. Yeah, I don't know which one I necessarily like the best. Like, it's still early on and I'm still kind of in like no pipe territory, so that may like die down a little bit, but I think, gosh, gun to my head, I'm probably like Us is slightly at the top for me, but this one's right up there and definitely the strongest as a piece of like filmmaking.
But I think my strong opinion on the order, though, I watched these back to back to back on Thursday. Like, I got up in the morning, I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna watch Get Out, and then I watched Us, and then I'm like, yeah, okay. It was actually opposite order: Us, and then Get Out, and then it was like half an hour before I went and saw Nope in the theater. So they're real fresh in my head. Like, and seeing how he's evolved as a filmmaker, it's really fun. It's really nice. And I think that the Carpenter, that's a very, very apt comparison to him, and the opposite M. Night, which is where I think you're going there.
Exactly.
Because also, like, he comes up with this twist to come up with a story. Right. M. Night comes up with a story to come up with a twist. So it's very different. And when people talk about that too, I would ask them, I'd be like, don't most of the stories that you like have some sort of twist in them at some point? Like, it's when it's at the end that it feels cheap, and it feels like, and it's cool with The Sixth Sense, but when you do it with every single one of your movies, I'm like, okay, except for Lady in the Water, which I kind of like. That one's not really a twist movie.
I secretly, I don't know if we're allowed to say this, but I secretly kind of like Lady in the Water too.
It's a good movie.
Yeah.
I remember that movie came out and everyone was shitting on it, and I was like, "Oh, it's because they have a critic in his movie and shits on him." That's the only reason. That's the only reason they're shitting on this movie.
Yeah, I had more fun with that one with Lady in the Water than pretty much any other M. Night movie. So, and I think that M. Night would appreciate that too. He'd probably be like, you know what? I love that movie. It's my homage to freaks and like this kind of culture and all this stuff that came up.
But so here's something to consider though, because Jordan Peele, I think for not everybody, for most people, I think he's 3 for 3 right now.
Yeah.
I'm like fast forwarding like a movie or 2 or 3 or however many it is until Jordan Peele comes out with this movie that just doesn't connect with people. And then all of a sudden the conversation becomes what it was with M. Night Shyamalan or so many other people that like reach certain heights, and then I just want to take it in like right now. Yeah. Remember this part where everyone's like all high on Jordan Peele, and remember that when he finally makes his bad movie, if he does, probably will, because everyone does. But when he makes his bad movie,
what's Tarantino's bad movie? Like, seriously, like Jordan could make just good
most
movies.
would say Grindhouse. I don't, but Death Proof is one of my favorite of his, but that's not. But yeah, you're right. I mean, he could maintain his quality throughout, but like I'm thinking of when he makes his bad movie and then everyone's
Ghost
like,
on Mars.
Jordan Peele ain't shit. I'm like, come on, dude.
Yeah,
like, he's gonna make his Ghost on Mars.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like, because you're battling two different things. Or Jordan Peele is, you're battling not just like, objective quality and storytelling and craft and all of the things that any filmmaker brings into literally any film they do, but he's also coming into the expectation of what a Jordan Peele film is supposed to be and should be. And so at a certain point, I think it's going to be less that he necessarily makes like an absolute stinker. Who knows? Maybe, yeah, that happens too. But I think more and more that, as he makes a specific type of film, people are going to expect a specific type of film from him. And he's going to be stuck in a decision point. Like, am I going to keep making that film, or am I going to try something different? And if he tries something different, it's either going to be something that may be out of his wheelhouse, or that maybe is really good, but people don't connect with because it's not an air quotes Jordan Peele movie. So I think that, the shine is going to come off of Jordan Peele eventually. And again, it may not even be an effect, like a quality thing. It's just the way that these things work. But for me, you're absolutely right, Eric. Like, I'm enjoying this area where we live in right now. I'm loving kind of living in the era of like, I can go watch a Jordan Peele movie and feel like it's going to click with me, or an Ari Aster film, or a Robert Eggers film. Like, I think that there's this crop of filmmakers like Karen Kursama, these crop of filmmakers who've come up recently who are a few horror films in, and all of them have been absolute bangers. And like, I'm going to go see their new film sight unseen, and Jordan Peele is one of those.
I wonder. I think Jordan Peele should probably get into comedy. I think he'd do really good in it. What do you guys think?
You know, that's a good idea. I had this idea for this sketch for him though. Like he and this guy should be talking about the women that they know, and they should be wanting to say bitch. But they have to go like everywhere that they aren't around and look around and say bitch, and they should end up in space. And that's how it should go. I think that's what they should do.
That's a really good idea. You should write that down before someone steals that.
What if they make a movie about, like, I don't know, something whimsical like a cat?
Oh, you know what? They should do the opposite John Wick movie. They should do the John Wick comedy. I'm gonna go pitch this to him now.
Actually, speaking of like, because obviously Jordan Peele wasn't known for horror when he did Get Out, and then that's kind of his thing now. Especially after watching this, I'd like to see him take on like just a full-on action movie. Because he shoots action extremely well in this.
You know, I think that we all agree. We'd like to see him do whatever genre he decides to do. He could do a musical, and I'm going to go see that musical. Yeah. Like, I don't care. He can do, like, he's actually gotten to the point where I don't care what he does. I will go watch it, just like Will's saying. Like, in the same ones that you say, I'm not going to, like, Robert Eggers, you don't need to show me a preview. I'm sitting there like first day for his movie. Like, I like it that we're living in this era where there's filmmakers like that too, that we're gonna just go see.
Jordan Peele, courtroom drama. I can't wait.
You can do it.
You know what? I'm gonna watch Anatomy of a Murder for the first time today. I'm totally down with the courtroom drama.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, for a treat.
Yeah, I know. I watched 12. I almost put it on last night, and it would have been an in the heat of the night kind of thing. Instead, I put on 12 Angry Men. Because I'm like, okay, 90 minutes, not 180 minutes.
Well, before I guess we still got time, but I think we can wrap this up. Any final words on Nope?
I think we all say you should, if you haven't already seen it, why are you to the end of this? Why have you listened to this whole spoiler episode? But I think we would probably all agree it's worth a rewatch, not just a watch. I think.
I'm going to see it again. I need to go to see this IMAX because I'm dumb. Like, I wanted to go in so cold that I didn't know it was shot in IMAX camera. I was not aware that it was shot for that because I've been trying to just stay away from any and all information that I could get about the movie. I heard that after I saw it, and I'm like, well, shit, there's like the biggest IMAX in Florida is close to me. So I'm going to go see it on that sometime this week. Like an actual IMAX.
Yeah.
There is one thing I almost forgot. Do you guys stay for after the credits?
No.
Yes, I did.
I mean, it wasn't that big of a deal. It was like
what
was it like? Just a card of like Jupiter's. Whatever.
Yeah, they introduced young Thor, I think, in the it's just a title card. Therefore, just like Jupiter's whatever. Come ride the ride at Universal Studios. Like, basically, like, what I thought was neat about it was it's already turned, like, that little title card felt cynical to me, you know. You turned this tragedy that happened on this set into a Saturday Night Live sketch inside of the movie, and now there's this new tragedy that, you know, people caught on tape, and all of those reporters showed up in a TMZ reporter guide, and now check out the ride at Universal. Like, you know, it's immediately been turned back into spectacle by the end of the credits.
Yeah. But just for anyone listening, it's not like a scene. It's just that title card at the very end. But
it's a good joke.
I like your take on it, William.
I like that too, because of course they would turn it into a theme park ride. They'd be like, how do we make money off of this? Would be the first thought if it really happened. Like, you know it would be too. We need to exploit this. Like, come up with t-shirts and alien flags and everything, and let's sell them to people. It would totally happen.
Well, speaking of which, if I die in a horrible tragedy, you guys and anyone listening, go ahead and make t-shirts and exploit my tragedy.
Is what I'm hearing that the three of us have exclusive merchandising rights to your tragedy?
Yes. In fact,
you can have mine too.
Not only can you, I want you to. I implore you to do so.
All right.
Excellent. After your Viking funeral, we will do that.
Yeah.
Like that from the Guar documentary. That seemed like a very good funeral to me.
Yeah.
But one thing that I would like to say to people though, like if you watch the movie, you really like some of the message things behind it and stuff. I watched a movie the other day that I thought was so fresh, so wonderful that I think should be sought out by people. In the Heat of the Night from Norman Jewison, who did Moonstruck, which is a fantastic comedy. It's edited by Hal Ashby, starring Sidney Poitier and Rod Steiger. That movie seems so fresh, like with all the race things in it, and also the way that it approached the abortion issue from a pre-Roe versus Wade stance. Like, I think that movie needs to be re-released into theaters. So I just want to say at the end, check out In the Heat of the Night. I don't know where it's streaming or anything. I bought the 4K, but that movie, that's fresh, and it actually, like, put it back into theaters. Like, it could use a rerun. Like, it's good. They kept me up until like almost 2 a.m, and I meant to go to sleep. I just wanted to see what the 4K looked like. But man, that movie was great, and it fits with this kind of stuff. So that's my last word.
Those are wonderful nights, but terrible mornings when that happens.
It was. I woke up far too early and didn't mean to, but I'm glad I watched the movie.
All right. Well, any final words, Bruce?
I just want to thank William Lindus from Movie Bears Podcast.
And I want to thank Andrew Martin from Andrew Watches Movies.
Well, thank you, Bruce, for getting a hold of me. And thank you, Bruce, for putting this together and putting together like the nice little message thing.
It was kind of Eric, but he said, "Hey, make that happen." So I just did the other half of it.
Well, because I was literally going into the movie theater when I hit Bruce.
So I said, "Fine, I'll make it happen." And between the two of us, we made it happen.
I'm glad you did. Right. This was an incredibly fun conversation. Thank you so much, guys.
All right, let's all fist bump.
Thank you.
Let's fist bump before something bad happens.
All right. Have a good day, guys. Chat with you online.
Bye.
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 Bye. Bye.